This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/get started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get started.
So the wizard's name is Shazam.
Right. But that's just a coincidence, right? So Shazam stands for Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury.
But he's named Shazam.
I don't know what to tell you.
Tell me why he's named Shazam.
Okay, you're overthinking this. Hard right pivot is the obvious way to go.
Boring.
Plus, it's the short money, man. I'm telling you, we gotta find Jesus.
Hey, guys, what are you arguing about?
Noah, okay. Thank you. Just the man we need.
All right. Usually when people say that, something needs to be smoked. Am I smoking something?
No. We were
this time.
inspired by your essay this week about Aimee Semple McPherson, and we got to thinking, hey, if getting rich is that easy, why don't we all just do it?
Yeah, right. But the thing is, we can't decide between finding Jesus or just taking a hard turn right politically.
Okay, first of all, hard right and find Jesus are basically synonyms. Second of all, if you just find Jesus, there's pretty much no groupies. So,
Are you expecting a lot of groupies there, Mr. Clean?
all right.
Thank you, Tom.
I'd like to not rule them out, is all I'm saying.
Really hoping Season Liberally takes off and never have to speak to any of you again. I mean, treasure maps.
Ooh.
We could try treasure maps.
Yeah, treasure map sounds great.
You're the godfather of my sons.
Well, God's not real, Tom.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, a podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Heath, and I'll be the bunny of this made-up kidnapping. And I'm joined by the dude, Walter, the Jesus, and Brant, Noah, Tom, Cecil, and Eli.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Heath, I've been called a lot of things, but never a good man.
I'm Jesus. All right.
shit
Nailed
tits.
it. Got it. Nailed it.
Because Jesus.
Because of
Nice.
Jesus. Exactly. Cheers, Heath.
Cheers. Cheers to you. Eli, you're here too. What would you like to say?
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
There it is. Great. Wow. I hadn't considered that whole angle. All right, Noah, let's just get right into it. What person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event are we going to be talking about today?
Aimee Semple McPherson.
Excellent. And where did you find the story of Aimee Semple McPherson?
Well, so one of the weird consequences of doing a show like The Scathing Atheist or Cognitive Dissonance is that you end up knowing way more about evangelical Christianity's pantheon of historical douchebags than you ever really wanted to know.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, say, one day you're just happily living your life, and the next day you're interjecting into conversations to say, well, actually, it was Jerry Falwell Sr. that freaked out about Tinky Winky being gay. That wasn't Billy Graham, right? And such is the case here. I was actually reading the memoir of our mutual ex-pastor friend, Dave Warnock, and he's got this little throwaway line where he's talking about his influences on like the style of evangelism that he liked at the time. And he says something along the lines of, and I also really admired the work of Aimee Semple McPherson, even though she staged her own kidnapping.
Huh?
Only evangelical Christians can not let a little thing like felonious fraud get in the way of a shout out.
I like that Noah was reading something and he was just like, what? Pin in that. That's like the name of our show, basically.
Yep, exactly.
Pin in that, the podcast.
That's exactly it.
As I read, I keep a little list right next to me in case one of those moments should arise. So immediately I wrote Aimee Semple McPherson on my little list. And the more I looked into her, the more fascinated I became by her story because she's fucking awful. Right? She's a terrible person. She did terrible shit for a living. She faked her own kidnapping. Then she did more terrible shit, and then she died. But she was also a pioneer that broke through a lot of terrible shit glass ceilings. Right? So it's like, you know how like sometimes you'll read about a serial killer or a mass murderer, and you find out that the perpetrator is a woman, and some small part of you is like, good for her. Right?
Sure. Yeah, this is absolutely.
This is weirdly the closest I've ever felt to her with that line. I don't
Like
So, yeah.
Melania.
feel bummed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, exactly. Like Melania. So reading about her is kind of like that because she's this thrice married single woman radically transforming American Protestantism during the era of women's suffrage, but she's transforming it into like what it is.
Sure. All right. So, who was Aimee Semple McPherson? Start us at the beginning.
Well, originally she was Aimee Elizabeth Kennedy, born in the year 1890 in Ontario, Canada. Her dad was a devout Methodist, but her mom was an active member of the Salvation Army, which was much more unapologetically churchy back then. And apparently Aimee's future as a preacher was marked out early. According to the wiki, which I should point out up front, occasionally strays into outright hagiography.
Not to be confused with hagiography, which is the study of how to say hello to Snoop Dogg. That's hagi.
Dre actually has a PhD in that. Dr. Dre. Eli, did you have a joke to go with it? Or did you want to yes and it? You got a
Netherlands.
What?
Netherlands.
Holland?
What?
The Hague is in
The Hague.
Oh, jeez.
The
Hague is a city.
Uh-huh.
in the
Yep.
Sure is.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
What's the alternative to yes and that
Shit
Eli goes?
tits.
It's like or this.
So anyway, according to the hagiographical wiki, McPherson would, quote, play Salvation Army with classmates and preach sermons to dolls, end quote.
Except the dolls never put any money into her little kettle. They were a bunch of brats.
So young brats with a Z. I see, yes.
Shot,
The joke works good on paper.
So Amy's first brush with BAME came when she was still a kid. In high school, she was taught about the theory of evolution, and that didn't sit right with her Christian upbringing because Christianity isn't true and evolution is, and they are therefore in conflict. But she didn't see it that way. She wrote a letter to a Canadian newspaper castigating the government for using taxpayer dollars to spread the heretical theory of Darwinism. The letter gained national traction and kicked off what would be a lifelong campaign against the teaching of evolution.
Okay, admittedly, discovering a lifelong battle against things that are true really opens up the board for you,
Doesn't it,
right?
though?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You can rewrite all kind of shit. So she first
Could be a
married at the ripe
Republican.
old age. Yeah, exactly. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't get ahead of me now.
You can go to the Hague for war crimes.
That's in the
Yeah,
Netherlands.
oh, interesting.
Did you?
So, fun fact. So, okay. So, she first married at the ripe old age of 17 to one Robert James Semple. He was a Pentecostal missionary from Ireland. She converted to Pentecostalism when she married him. And you have to keep in mind that Pentecostalism is at this point younger than she is. At its earliest, Pentecostalism started in 1901, which would have been 6 years before she signed on. But really, it started in 1906. So she was an early adopter. And for those of you who don't keep up with all the various flavors of American Christianity, I should point out that the main thing that distinguishes Pentecostalism from other forms of Protestantism is that they speak in tongues and they writhe around on the ground and they fall down and they do healing and all that kind of shit. Like if weird Christians are looking at other Christians and saying, well, that's some weird shit, odds are they're looking at Pentecostals right, or some outgrowth of Pentecostalism.
Dumb for Protestants, yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys know if they sell you on getting the wiggles right away, or is that like a reveal after you become a platinum member? Do you guys know?
It is the latter, actually. It is.
Well, either way, you end up handling a cobra and writhing around on the floor. I feel like that's happening either way. Just like Jesus Christ did.
No, Heath, you're thinking of being an altar boy.
Yeah.
An altar boy.
Yeah, snake handling means a very different thing between Protestants and Catholics, but they both do it. Yeah. So anyway, Aimee and Robert tie the knot. They head off to China to spread the good word of Jesus to the heathens there. Both of them like immediately get malaria, and then Robert dies of dysentery.
Okay, see, that's why you caulk the wagon and ford the river.
Eventually, you're going to have to. You can't wait forever. Yes.
Ridiculous.
So now she was pregnant at his death, and on the boat home from Hong Kong, she gives birth to her daughter, Roberta Starr Semple. While she's convalescing in New York, she meets this accountant named Harold Stewart McPherson. His name's a dead giveaway that she's then going to marry that guy. That happens in 1912. Year later, she has a second kid, a son that they burden with the Muppetesque moniker of Rolf.
It's time for dysentery. It's time to shit all night. It's time to birth a Muppet on the Muppet Show tonight. Bum, bum.
I don't know how you lost that writing job, Cecil. You were perfect for this. Tragedy.
So McPherson, she tries out the life of a housewife for a couple of years. She doesn't like it, so she decides to try her hand at preaching. Nobody ever just decides to try their hand. Let me give her origin story justice here. One day, while recovering from a near-fatal appendicitis surgery, a mysterious voice spoke to her and told her to go and preach the word of Christ. And once the voice departed, she could suddenly roll over in her bed without pain. And she knew that the Lord had gifted her with the power of healing.
That's it? The rolling over?
Yeah,
seriously?
No, that did it for her.
You know when you're in bed and you're a little uncomfortable, but your back kind of hurts if you roll? Yeah, God sent me to cure humanity of that scourge. You're fucking welcome. Weird.
So anyway, so Bobby comes
I also
home.
readjust the tongue of your shoe when it droops a little bit. From God.
In a holy way, yeah. All right, but so Bobby comes home one day. She's gone. Kids are gone. Presumably there's a note that says, like, Jesus gave me back curing pains, dinner's in the oven. A couple weeks later, she sends him a letter inviting him to join her on the road, which he does reportedly with the intent of dragging her back home 19 teens style. But when he sees her preaching, he's like, wow, she's really good at this. And for a time, he joins her on the road. The couple sell their house, move into their car with two kids about age 4 and 2, and head off to grift. I mean, preach.
You mean grift.
I do mean grift. Yes. Well, so let me be clear. So all preaching is grifting, if you ask me. But even if you're inclined to view Christianity a bit more charitably than me, what Aimee was doing was grifting. Okay.
And don't do that.
Right. No, I'm talking to a potential listener, not anyone on the record here. So she was one of the early modern and faith healers. Right, she pioneered a lot of the bullshit tactics that faith healers still use. So, someone in this audience's knee was just healed, and so what invisible and externally immeasurable malady do you suffer from? All of that shit that you see today.
I wish it was phrased that way.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. But she was doing all that shit before it was cool. She also specialized. I love this detail so goddamn much. She also specialized in interpreting glossolalia. That is telling people who were speaking in tongues what they just said.
That's the dumbest possible.
Yeah,
amazing.
I know she could fucking hear in
That's
tongues.
fucking outstanding. Well, you speak in tongues. Well, I can hear in ears, and I'll tell you.
I will admit I've always wondered about that part. Like, if speaking in tongues were real, which it most assuredly is not, I do kind of hope it's just angels muttering grocery lists and half-remembered song lyrics and shit. Just nothing. It's just nothing.
It's the best. They've actually studied this. Everybody does the same thing, and they run out of fake noises after 7. And then they're just la, la.
Humming. Yeah, exactly. It's hilarious.
It always just devolves into the start of Bad Romance by Lady Gaga after 5 minutes.
Every time.
So for the first few years of her ministry, she's doing tent revivals, which were all the rage back then. And even though it was still really unusual for a woman to preach at the time, she was a natural performer. And by all accounts, even early on, she knew how to work an audience. One of her big innovations was to realize that all the speaking in tongues and ecstatic seizure shit that was associated with Pentecostalism freaked normal people the fuck out.
Sure.
So she followed Cecil's advice, basically made it a platinum member thing. right? And try to keep it out of her tent revivals, to the point of having like a special tent for people like to go to if they wanted to go full
What?
Pentecostal.
That's amazing.
You never go full Pentecostal. Did the extra tent have like water bottles and like orange slices?
Probably.
Maybe anti-venom? That would be good.
Yeah, you do want. That's a good idea.
So her husband stuck around for a bit of this. He couldn't handle staying in her shadow for long, so he went back home, filed for a divorce on the grounds of abandonment, and the two were legally separated in 1918. In the same year, her traveling roadshow reaches Los Angeles. Now, LA is a much different city 100 some odd years ago, right? But it was already a popular vacation destination, and Hollywood was already synonymous with the movies. And so like generally, the tent revival type preaching has to keep moving because it's not sustainable. Like pretty soon people get bored with it, or your miraculous healing powers are called into question because they don't really work, or the city's authorities just push you out or whatever. But all of that changes when you're catering to tourists. All the people at your services are going to be gone soon anyway. So McPherson decides to settle down.
Yeah, it's like laying down and opening up your mouth at the end of the grift conveyor belt, and they just fall right in.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, even more so than that. So by 1923, she formally dedicates her church, the Angelus Temple, aka the Foursquare Church. During its construction, she becomes one of the first preachers to make heavy use of mass media and becomes a mainstay on radio. So by the time the church opens, she's already a national celebrity. According to the wiki, within the first 7 years of its operation, no idea why they measured the first 7 years, but over the first 7 years of its operation, the church received over 40 million visitors.
Wow, that's a lot. That's like an endless stream of gullible religious nuts just shitting money into bad ideas. That must have been a big tent indeed. Likely illuminated by 1,000 points of light.
Wasn't she in that temple with William Jennings Bryant, and she like helped be an activist for the Scopes trial too? For the Christianity
absolutely.
team.
Holy
Absolutely.
shit.
The worst.
Yeah. Uh-huh. No, so by all accounts, her sermons were bizarrely theatrical and over the top. And also she had a knack for turning potential scandals into good PR. I have a great example that demonstrates both. She gets pulled over for speeding at some point, and it goes so badly for her that she gets arrested. Rich white lady pulled over for speeding. She manages to get herself arrested, which strongly suggested there was way more to it than just speeding. So anyway, so this makes the news, presumably because she's a woman driving a car, and who never even heard of such a thing. But given her status as a moral icon and literal worker of healing miracles from Jesus, this was seen as quite scandalous, but she incorporates it into her next sermon. Rather than running away, she titles her next sermon, Arrested for Speeding, and she starts it off by driving onto stage on a fucking motorcycle, dressed as a cop, and then holding up her hands, and her opening line is like, "Stop, you're speeding to hell."
Okay. That's awesome.
Ooh, I love that. Jerry Falwell Jr. should do his next sermon dressed as a shattered pane of glass and be like, "Win, don't risk your eternal soul."
Now, McPherson's services were crazy popular, and she was doing damn near 24 of them a week, each one with multiple passings of the collection plate, of course. Now, people came from all over the country to hear her sermons. She was basically a televangelist before there was television, and this pissed off other church leaders in LA who were outraged that she would resort to cheap theatrics to monetize the name of God / was cutting into their take. They also didn't like the idea of some harlot divorcee with 2 kids by 2 different men representing the city's Christians.
Rampant sexism. If she were a man, she could have had 5 kids and 3 wives, become president, and the evangelicals still would have loved her.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So these other Christian leaders were probably secretly elated in May of 1926 when she disappeared at the beach and was presumed dead. And then they were much less secretly elated when she turned up in a Mexican border town 5 weeks later with a damned unlikely story to tell.
All right. Well, it sounds like she's going to have a really cool sermon about beating the fuck out of Christopher Walken and almost saving Natalie Wood. Looking forward to that.
Jesus Christ.
But first, quick break for some apropos of nothing.
that, my friends, is why I'm here today. But first, some glossolalia interpretation.
Some what?
Well, y'all speak in tongues, don't ya?
Oh, we sure do.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, we do.
All right, well, the Lord has given me the gift of understanding those tongues. So let them ring out, and I shall tell you what the Lord lets me hear.
Other noises.
Amazing.
Lord.
Oh, I can hear it all. I can just hear it all. So, you, sir, right there.
Yes?
You said, may the angel of the Lord protect my children.
Oh, I did?
You sure did.
Well, hallelujah.
And you, sir, in the overalls holding the pitchfork, are you a farmer?
Well, how did you know?
Well, when you spoke in tongues, you said, I am a farmer. Lord, bless my crops.
Well, howdy.
And of course, you, good sir, kind sir, you said that you would give me $100.
I did.
Yep. You sure did. You said it clear as a bell. You said, Lord, I am about to give this lady $100.
Okay. I mean, are you sure about that? I said that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Heard it plain as day. The Lord gave me the power to hear your tongues, just as sure as he gave you the power to speak them.
Okay. So here's the thing about.
Well, surely you don't doubt your ability to speak in tongues.
No, I guess. No.
Surely you're not implying that a bunch of full-grown adults are just standing around at a tax-free building yelling nonsense words in a desperate and pathetic hope that it'll stave off the knowledge that all living creatures have, that from the void we come and to the void we must return. Are you?
Come on, Larry.
Look, here's $100.
Hallelujah.
I hate my gay son.
I hate him too.
Thank you, whoever that was. And we're back. When we left off, Aimee was at the Mexican border about to start a grand old bigot tradition of telling us who's doing the raping. Love that. What happened next?
Okay, so here's what we know. On May 18th of 1926, Aimee went to Venice Beach for a swim with her secretary. Soon after arriving, she was nowhere to be
that's
found.
a normal thing to do. What?
I guess for her, it
Let's go swimming. Write that down, and you're going to come with me and write everything.
It's
Down.
That's probably a California thing. Anyway, so she disappears. She's nowhere to be found. On June 23rd, 5 weeks later, she stumbles out of the Mexican desert across the border from Douglas, Arizona, and collapses on some random couple's porch. What happened to the intervening 5 weeks has been a mystery ever since, and everybody who knew the truth took it to their graves. So all we can do here is speculate.
We might need a break. Eli's going to have to change his pants after that last line there, Noah. Come on, man.
Interesting.
So
Thank you, Tom. Sorry. I was sorry. Wow. I was not there when I was the cue. Thank you, Tom. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll start with the least likely story, which is the one that Aimee told until the day she died. And incidentally, the one that motivates every goddamn breath of the Wikipedia editor who has dedicated themselves wholly and entirely and unfailingly to clearing her name by citing really questionable self-published sources to discredit anybody who would dare cast aspersions on Aimee Semple McPherson's holy memory. Just because I'm on the other side of the battlefield doesn't mean I can't admire your tenacity, bro. And you showed me citation needed tags that I had never seen before, so kudos. Anyway, so according to McPherson's account, she was approached by a couple on the beach who asked her to pray over their sick child. She followed them to their car where they attacked her, put a chloroform-soaked cloth over her face, and stuffed her in the car. She woke up sometime later, drugged and tied up in a mining shack somewhere in Mexico. A couple named Stephen Rose held her there for weeks, and then she escaped. One day,
How did you know it was chloroform? Did they say it afterwards?
well, they would have had to say beforehand, right? You know, chloroform.
Chloroform,
Parkour,
You actually,
or whatever.
if you ask, they have to tell you. It's like being
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Yeah.
Okay.
She looked, as she was passing out, she looked at the guy, solid snake. That's how she knew.
He's just holding a bottle that has 3 X's on it. She's like, what is that? What is that?
Wait a minute. So she escapes one day. Both of the captors leave, and while they're away, she saws through the ropes around her ankles and wrists on the lid of a half-open can. She climbs through a window, and she heads north into the desert. She walks for between 11 and 17 hours, covers a distance between 17 and 20 miles before she reaches Agua Prieta around 1 a.m.
See, this is why women are such better liars than men. No dude could resist overpowering his kidnappers with his sweet karate skills, right? We would all stand there.
That's fair. And I just blasted through the ropes. I flexed my dick, just broke the ropes open. At that point, that established dominance over the kidnappers, obviously. So it was really easy because of the dominance that I had established. I know a lot of different martial arts, too. Exactly.
Yeah, also 17 miles in 17 hours. If I were making up a story, I'd have invented better mile time than 1 mile an hour.
Was she crawling the whole way? How do you even? It's impossible to do.
Hands and knees.
You can't go that slow if you're going straight up.
So, okay, but even beyond the romance novel silliness of the story and the extremely low pace, there were all kinds of problems with her bullshit story. Keep in mind, we're talking about June in Mexico in the desert. Right? Her story is that she escaped in the morning. So she walked through the desert in 120-degree heat. That's 49 communist degrees for our European listeners. All day, no water. Okay? Now, that's possible, I guess, even if you're in a weakened state from being bound and underfed for over a fucking month. But, like, your clothes would at least all be torn up and your shoes would be ruined. And you'd be sunburned as all fuck. She was none of those things.
She comes walking out of there. I speak in tongues, I hear in ears, and I walk in feet, so none of that stuff affects me. None of it.
Wikipedia editor somehow comments on our podcast. He's not even mentioning that her hair was messed up. Tag bias.
Yeah.
Bias.
So much smudge on those shoes. So
Get out of the podcast.
There was also a suspicious lack of ransom demands while she was gone. Right, this was a 5-week period. Now, to be clear, there was a ransom note. There were actually several ransom notes, but her disappearance and the mystery surrounding it was a media sensation, and there was nothing that the cops deemed credible, right? There certainly wasn't anything like the increasingly desperate communications you would expect if somebody was going to all the risk and expense of holding her in Mexico for weeks on end. And also, and I love this detail so fucking much, she still had her watch. Like the kidnappers, they let her keep her fancy watch, like through the kidnapping, and it made it through the heroic trek, the 1 mile an hour trek across the wastelands, just fine.
Okay, Christopher Walken knows how it stayed so pristine. That
Oh, shit.
I feel kind of weird being the pedantic one at the moment, but if you're wearing a watch, how are you unsure about whether you walked 11 or 17 hours?
Wearing it in your ass, Tom. What did I just say?
Yeah, you got
We're
it.
paying attention.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, her disappearance was already a media sensation, so you can only imagine what her reappearance was like. The newspapers went fucking nuts. When she returned to LA, she was greeted by a crowd of 30 to 50,000, which, according to Wikipedia, is, quote, a greater turnout than President Woodrow Wilson's 1919 visit to Los Angeles, end quote. But according to Wilson, they, quote, put down whiteboards for my crowd, so it's hard to tell, but my crowd was actually But soon after her return, the tales of her harrowing escape gave way to news stories about how unlikely basically every detail of it was, and those gave way to stories about where she might have been and what she might have been doing instead of being kidnapped. Now, during her disappearance, there were sightings of her everywhere from Mexico to Canada, so the papers could find some evidence to back up pretty much any claim, but most of the theories revolved around a guy named Kenneth Ormiston. So Ormiston was a former employee of McPherson's and one of the many guys that the gossip columnists had romantically linked to her. And let me just say that based on what we know, Ormiston was either with McPherson through the bulk of her supposed kidnapping or with McPherson through the bulk of her kidnapping on the other side of the oar, okay? Because she was definitely and very clearly with this dude through the bulk of her supposed kidnapping.
Man, the lengths you have to go through as a Pentecostal to get laid does not seem worth it, man. What the fuck?
That's because you haven't felt glossolalia on your butthole, Cecil. Once you do that, yes, that's when you know.
So at the same time as McPherson was disappearing, the married Ormiston was renting a beach house for 3 months in Carmel by the Sea for him and a woman that was not his wife. He stayed there with said woman for about a week, but then when the McPherson story blew up, the cops started looking for him. He turns himself in because, you know, a fucking person of interest in a missing persons case is super duper close to murder suspect. But he turns himself in, answers a bunch of questions. After that, he bounces around the country and stays in a bunch of undisclosed locations, hides from the media by his own fucking admission, and then pops back into the public eye around the time McPherson shows back up.
Convenient.
Yeah, right. Now, for his
Interesting. Sorry.
yeah, that's the line. Now, for his part, Ormiston insists that he was just cheating on his wife with a different lady who has an identical twin for some reason, by the way.
Get the fuck out!
Yes, in case somebody saw the woman. So anyway, the point being, he had nothing to do with McPherson's disappearance.
Yeah.
This is a twin and amnesia story. Okay.
These are the days of their lives.
Why is he making up extra lies for no reason? He's just like, also, I can do a backflip. Watch. Whip. Ow. Oh, God.
Also, oh my God, that hurt. Yeah, but by the way, that twin, Albert Einstein. No, that doesn't make sense. Really hurt myself.
So now, and I should be clear that it wasn't just gossip columnists that were asking these questions. The city spent a lot of money looking for her and investigating her kidnapping.
Guys, we got to find that McPherson kidnapper, or we got to find the guy who killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Or we look like idiots if we don't find one.
At least one of them. Yeah, but like during the search, like 2 people died while they were searching the nearby ocean for her body.
Oh, I found one. Nope, that is Steve. Okay.
So anyway, in addition to the news reporters, LA District Attorney Asa Keys had impaneled a grand jury to look into her story within days of her return, because even by then, the story was starting to fall apart.
Wow, man. You lose people to drowning searching for someone who supposedly drowned. That is total sunk cost fallacy, man.
It is, though. So now what that grand jury found was pretty damning. First of all, there was no structure within 20 miles of where she was found that fit her description of where she was being kept. And she would have been there for 5 weeks, so there would have been like at least like a hole full of shit somewhere, right? The local police found tracks and footprints matching her shoes that suggested that someone drove her about 2 hours away from that little town after dark and let her walk in from there. The cop she spoke to said that she was evasive when asked to describe the kidnappers in any real detail. They even found a lady who said that McPherson's people paid her to pretend to be the lady with the twin that Ormiston was fucking that whole time. So based on all of that, they charged McPherson with fraud.
Kidnappers watching the news. I knew having bluish, greenish, brownish eyes would pay off someday. Nice.
And I cut off my toe. It's not fair.
Yeah. But alas,
fair? Who's the fucking Pentecostal around here?
But alas, the witness had once spent more than 0 days in a mental institution and didn't have a penis. So the powers that be decided she wasn't credible enough and all the charges against McPherson were dropped. But in the court of public opinion, she'd already been convicted. A once friendly media that routinely referred to her as the miracle worker turned against her, and pretty much everyone concluded that the entire ordeal was a combination between a tryst and a publicity stunt. The fact that her daughter and mother later basically disowned her over a messy fight for control of the church and a short-lived marriage to an actor/musician did not help her public image. Now, truth be told, to me, the idea that this was all a publicity stunt is almost as hard to believe as the kidnapping story. But among the many accounts from people who claim to have seen her during her absence, there's one that I think might shed light on what really happened, okay? So a whole fuck ton of people claim to have seen her, or at least a woman who matched her basic size and shape, but was always wearing a wide hat and goggles, at the house.
What?
Yeah, goggles. I don't. Everyone
swimming
described it
goggles
as
or driving
goggles.
kind?
Okay, these are absurd ski goggles in my head right
Okay.
now. They're so
Yeah,
big.
like she would look like an old school aviator or so. I don't.
Yeah, like World War I aviator. Yes.
Right.
I'm
So
picturing swim goggles just because it's sillier with the like straps hanging down by your ears and everything.
Way too tight. Yeah. So
Snorkel
but-
keeps smacking her in the face as she's moving around. She can't get it under the
So
hat.
what is this even for?
I don't know why I'm wearing the flippers too.
Why
That's
do I
just-
do this?
There's air above me. You can breathe from wherever you want. It makes sense.
Stupid.
You don't have to be in water.
That's why I walked 1 mile an hour. These flippers really slow me down.
Yes. They get sand on them. So, but they see this woman like who's obviously disguising her identity at the place that Ormiston rented in Carmel. And among the people who saw her, there was a grocery delivery boy who told the newspapers that as he was coming up to the cottage, he saw 3 physicians leaving. So based on his description, a lot of people suspected that the real reason she disappeared was to have an abortion. But it fits the facts really well, right? Because she's not going to risk her whole fucking career to bone an ex-employee, right?
Very un-evangelical of her.
Well, actually, yeah, now that you mention it, several of them have. But if she was going to like fake a kidnapping, like she went into it intending to do that, you'd think they would have put a little more effort into it. Now, it was widely reported that her appendicitis operation had rendered her infertile.
I'm not an expert, but I think that surgeon needs to retake anatomy. If that's the
So,
case.
like, I think there was like a big infection or whatever that came after it or something.
I hope so.
But
He said whoopsie really loud during the operation, Tom. So
sometimes
it's allowed.
you
If you
slip.
swallow a camera, it goes to your appendix. And you're able to see your uterus from there.
Is it a good sign when the patient's nose lights up that red? But okay.
So, but the point is that she could have easily like had heard from a doctor that like the she was infertile and it was an almost all the time situation that she mistook for ironclad. She gets unexpectedly pregnant. She knows that that's going to end her fucking career, right? And she arranges to have the abortion. Now she's assured at the time that she's only going to need to disappear for a day or two, but it's all back then. So this shit is sloppy and back alley as all hell. Something goes wrong. She needs to hide out for weeks while she convalesces. Then her and Ormiston desperately concoct this kidnapping story after the fact.
Honey, I know you're in terrible pain from your botched back alley abortion, but you got to admit this is kind of funny, right? Because you're the, we'll talk about it later. But you're screaming, just so you know.
Okay, no, we'll pay some other lady to cut off her toe. Sorry, you're dealing with something right now.
So anyway, now that's how
Why
I
are we
see
doing
it.
the toe thing? It doesn't matter.
So anyway, that's how I see it, but we don't actually know the truth. That being said, the valiant Wikipedia crusader does know the truth, damn it. And if the only way to lead readers there is by including hit pieces on the DA and assistant deputy DA that led the investigation against her in the Wikipedia article that tried to tarnish their credibility by pointing out, among other things, that they drank alcohol during Prohibition, then by God, that's what they're going to do. And even though I don't agree with it, I support your mission anyway. Shine on, you crazy diamond.
Good for her. Absolutely. And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Modern American evangelism is a fucking fractal of bullshit.
Bullshit all the way up and down. Absolutely. Are you ready for the quiz?
I believe I am, sir.
All right, no, I have a question for you. What's the worst part about planning your abortion kidnapping at sea? A, hiding from the pro lifeguard. B, wondering if it's a boy or a girl. Boy is a thing in the water. All right, C, whether to Roe versus Wade.
Amazing. I think it's C, whether to Roe versus Wade.
Correct.
All right, Noah. Amy's revivals can sure make a guy hungry. What's a favorite snack for the revival tent? A, Peter Popovers. B, Billy Graham crackers. Or C, a third evangelical food pun.
That was the best
I
one.
did not come up with.
Tom's easing his
didn't
way
even
back
do-
into the show after missing last week.
You know,
Well, you didn't go for Peter Popcorn, which strikes me as odd. So I think it's probably C, a third food pun to be filled in
thought I
later.
would distract you by not writing a third one, but I did not. Too smart for
I
me.
got it. Still got it.
All right, Noah. Inquiring minds want to know, what is the secret identity of the Wikipedia editor you spent this essay and battled against? A. Shmamie Schmemple McPherson. B. A Mexican abortionist who was just having an off day, okay? Or C. Some Pentecostal nutbag who probably does this so God will forgive him for touching his wiener. I don't know.
Oh, C is tempting, but I got... I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go with B, a Mexican abortionist having an off
No,
day.
it's C, actually. It is C.
Oh, I should have.
yeah.
Sometimes it's got to be the obvious
really
answer.
is.
Yeah.
So close. Eli, you stumped him. Good work. You're the winner.
All right. I would like a citation needed essay from Heath next week.
All right. I'm on the docket. All right. Well, for Tom, Noah, Cecil, and Eli, I'm Heath. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and I will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear Tom and Cecil on Cognitive Dissonance, and you can hear Eli, Noah, and myself on God Awful Movies, The Scathing Atheist, The Skeptocrat, and D&D Minus. And if you'd like to pay us the money you owe us for never bringing weed to the circle this whole time, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod. You know who you are. It's most people. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, listen to past episodes, connect with us on social media, or take a look at the show notes, check out citationpod.com.
Looked dry. Definitely wouldn't make this one.
Brutal. Post it.
Hey guys, have you seen my what you doing at the computer there, guys?
Pornography.
Pornography?
Yep.
Okay, well, I've told you guys you got to lock the door, okay? It's gross. Yuck.
Sorry.
No problem. You got it. Flag his brown butter bars as child porn?
On it, yes.
Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.